This is my response video to DEMCAD talking about how preppers should survey their environment. You're gonna have to forgive me. I'm a grunt. I heard what you said, and it makes sense and it's great. But at the same time, there's a few things missing in it from my military way of thinking. I want to throw an acronym at you: a COCA. That's AKOCA. What it stands for is observation, fields of fire, key terrain features, obstacles, cover and concealment, and avenues of approach. Now, uh, here's the issue you run into. If you're talking about walking around your neighborhood and checking this out, I'm assuming you meant bugging in a bug-in situation. You need to avoid certain things, and you need to make a note of them. Your best bet for doing this isn't simply to simply note these things. A good idea would be to get a map of your neighborhood, your area, your hometown. I say go out to at least 10 miles, but I would shorten it down to a mile from your house, 3 miles, and 5, and then out to that 10, so you have different rings of knowledge here. Different little stages of things going on, and if at all possible, have someone in all four of your cardinal directions, at least one person all four of your cardinal directions, preferably more than that, in each of those little rings to relay information to you. You don't want to look like a big target sign of just having everyone along this line here and along, so it looks like you're looking at down the scope of a gun. It'd be better if there's a little, mixed up, but you want to be able to have some means of communicating with them, say CB radio or something like that. But that's more home defense planning. My point is, when you go looking at your map, what you want to look for immediately from your home, which would be preferably out to that mile, maybe most likely less, but looking from that mile radius or the immediate field of view, you want to look at points of observation. And what you're observing for are places that from the outside looking into your yard, into your neighborhood, whatever, you want to look for areas where you have cover and concealment. Remember, cover will stop a bullet, concealment won't. Uh, so, and they'll both hide you. So that's basically what you're looking at. But you want to be able to see it both ways. You want to be able to see it looking at your home from the outside and making a note of it. And you want to be able to sit there and look at the same thing, looking out from your home and making a note of it. A good idea is to take a camera and take a picture, and then to highlight all the areas where you're going to have where someone can hide while you're looking out your window and assessing your observation in your fields of fire. Now, that being said, I had to make a little notepad here. You want to be looking at key terrain features around you. You want to look for high points. You don't ever want to be on a high point, but you want to look and make note of your high points. Not because of snipers or anything like that, but because sometimes, most likely, most civilians, most untrained people will try to use the high ground. And in using the high ground, they silhouette themselves. And by silhouetting themselves against the sky, it's a bright blue sky, or the city lights, especially when you have a really cloudy sky, give the sky that pinkish orange glow. And a person standing on top of a hill, they stand out. Their shadows contrast sharply against the night sky. You want to be able to looking at that. You want to be able to know where the points are where you'll be able to observe someone. And key terrain features for that. The key terrain features you also want a basic distance on. So if somebody's standing on top of a hill and they're 800 yards out, you want to be able to know they're 800 yards out. Now, of course, you're not going to reach out and touch them with that AK of yours, but if you see them at 800 yards out and then they're coming towards you, then they're there. If you can, you don't necessarily want to put a bullet in them from a long distance, because that's just murder, and you don't know if this person has any intentions to do you any harm or not from 800 yards away, but you want to know that they're there. And you want to know the key terrain features that give you an idea of distance of how far they are, because of their distance to you and relevance to that key terrain feature, whether it be an abandoned building, a fallen tree. It needs to be a structure that's not going to get up and move, or something that's not going to get up and move. Chain link fence, to the edge of a park or something like that. You want to have an idea of the distance to that. You also want to go looking at obstacles. Now, obstacles is very important because it doesn't matter if they're natural or man-made. If there is a natural obstacle, let's say a chain link fence, that is there, that limits the approach, because that chain link fence can prevent someone from physically moving there without either A, climbing over top the chain link fence, or cutting a hole in it, then you know that there is an obstacle that a person will have to take the time to circumvent, and it will delay them in getting there. So you want to include that in your observation of the area, because if someone has bypassed that obstacle in some way, you want to be able to realize it. You want to be able to walk up to that chain link fence the next day, that next morning, and see if there's mud tracked on it, or if someone's cut a hole in it, to let you know that someone has passed that obstacle. Same way with a river in your hometown. If there's a river and you know that the only way to cross that river is a bridge, you want to look at that. If there's a boat there, then someone went through the boat. Not very many people are able to actually swim completely across a river. It's a whole different scenario out there. Coming back to those issues of cover and concealment for the observation, you want to not only have places of cover and concealment for you and your house and your yard and your neighborhood, but you want to look at it from the outside of somebody looking into your house, and you want to have points of cover and concealment inside your house, and then inside your yard, and then into your neighborhood. You also want to look at avenues of approach. Now, I want to take this and I'll flip it over. I'm going to say, say you're talking about a bug out situation. Let's say you're going to our fictional Uncle Bob, who lives, 20 miles out of town. Now, you know where you're going, okay? So it doesn't matter which direction you leave in, you know where you're eventually coming to. It doesn't matter if you're going to go south to avoid a problem in the north and then loop back around to go up north to go to fictional Uncle Bob's house out in the country, or if you're going to go west and cut up north or east, or cut up north or directly north. You basically want to have a route to get you there. Now, going along that route, you want to take your little map and you want to mark out the route you're going to take. But before you even get there, and this is what you're going to need, you're going to need a red marker, a black marker, and a blue marker. You're going to start with your red marker. If you can get to know your area around your neighborhood, walking around at least to a mile outside of your house, or out from your front door, at least a mile radius around you, you want to look for footpaths. Now, a footpath going off by itself out into the woods, you might want to check out, but you might want to do it in broad daylight, when you're less likely to come across anyone you really don't want to deal with. And you want to examine the area. If you're finding, beer bottles and needles and things of that nature there, you might not want to go that route. So you might want to take your little red marker, and you might want to draw a line along where that path is from your satellite view off Google Maps, and find your little clearing. You want to just circle that in red, because there's that path there going there, and the path is there, but you don't want to go down that path. So you want to highlight the paths you want to avoid in red. And then you want to avoid that dark little wooded area anyway, so we're just going to take that and edge around it and color it in with black, or just edge around it in black. You want to avoid open areas. In fact, here's actually a list. I'm going to just read off the list. Footpaths, isolated footpaths. Like I said, going in and examining it. If it's just a trail going through the woods, and it's something that runners take, and there's not a lot of trash, and especially things like beer bottles, or any signs of intoxication, or that's where people go to get drunk or do drugs or whatever, then you still want to be cautious about it at night. but you might want to mark it out of a day and put that on your map. Um, and you want to avoid, of course, dark alleys and things like that. The quintessential places where you're going to stereotypically find trouble. You want to avoid hilltops and high ground. It includes rooftops, stuff like that. You want to avoid that. So you go into your map and you take the top of hills and stuff, and mark the top edges or along the ridge line, because you don't want to go there. So that's in your blacked out area, and you don't want to go along the low areas where you get funneled by the terrain. So you want to mark out these little valleys and ways of cutting through with your black, and you want to especially if this is in one of your little black areas that you want to avoid, because it's one of these densely populated wooden areas and you won't know what's there. So you might want to take the clear area, the less dangerous area, mark it out in red. And of course you're going to pay attention to a COCA the whole time. You want to avoid high crime areas, period. So some towns and cities, you can go to the police department and get a crime statistics report that'll show you which areas they have a lot of crime in, a lot of violent crime in. So you want to look at areas where there's a lot of violent crime, and you just want to avoid those altogether. Areas which are officially gang turf, you want to avoid those altogether. So you're going to go in there and you're going to mark those out on your little map, because you're not going to go that direction. Then you were talking about natural sources of water. That's kind of a sketchy area, and I'm going to tell you why. Alright, there's certain towns out here in West Virginia which are primarily running along the valleys, and along these valleys they have their little creeks. And along these little creeks through the valleys, a lot of people's houses dump their waste into those creeks. And there's entire small little towns which look more like trailer parks and villages than an actual town, that where a lot of people, or the whole area, everything gets dumped into that creek. You don't want to be drinking that water, period. Even if you boil it, you're still kind of sketchy about drinking it. So you want to avoid that. Plus there's the issue of, well, if everybody's getting water from a natural source because it is somehow shut down in the city for whatever reason, or your town or whatever, for whatever pumping and we don't have water pumping through the pipes anymore, you're looking at one of those situations where it's like Animal Planet or the Discovery Channel, some shit out of the Serengeti. Everybody shows up to the watering hole, and it's not just the deer and the antelope playing, it's the lions and the cheetahs waiting to take them out. You want to avoid those places because you have to deal with the social predators and the criminals and the gangs and those types who are going to be going there for water too, on top of the other people who are going to be potential victims. If you're looking at water, your best bet is to either set up caches, a 5-gallon bucket with a gallon jug of water, and a little bit of food buried in the dirt out a little ways off from it, with some kind of trail marker or something there for it, your X on a tree, or different things. One of the things a buddy of mine's suggested, and it made a really good idea, was that you carve a little heart on it and you put initials into it, different initials each time. But if you see that heart with those initials, it's your cache is buried, so many paces in such a direction from that tree. And you can put all this on a little notepad to take with you just in case, or a little flashcard. Now, and it's always better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So, if you're going to bug out, at least in one of the 4 cardinal directions, north, east, west, and south. If you're going, you need to have somewhere to bug out to. So let's say you're going to your fictional Uncle Bob's, and he lives northwest of you. So no matter where you're going to head northwest. If you're going south to avoid trouble in the north, you're going to want to loop around to the west and cut back up. So you want to leave cache points along there for you to do that. If you're going to go directly northwest, you need to have a map going that way. If you preferably have 2 different routes, one going more west and then going north, and then one going north and then west, to allow you to avoid, you know, strictly going in a straight line there. And of course, one going east and then back up north and circling back around west. So you kind of want to have those multiple cache points and know your routes. And like I said, you're going to go through there and you're going to take areas that you want to avoid and you're going to mark them out in black. You know, a neighborhood with a lot of gang activity and a lot of criminal violence and things of that nature, you don't want to go through there. You don't want to go close to that. You're going to mark that out in black and avoid that area. You're going to choose a route around that, if at all possible. Abandoned buildings, they go on the map. That's something you want to avoid. You don't know who's in there. You don't know what's going on. You want to assess that. You were completely right on that. You want to assess that, know it's there, and avoid it if at all possible. You also want to avoid open areas. You know, if you're bugging out and, you know, I'm a criminal gang and I see you crossing a Walmart parking lot and you're coming close to, you know, my little criminal territory, one of those high crime areas, and I see you going through that open parking lot, it's real easy for me to tell how many people's with you and what all you have because I can see you plain as day. There's not a lot of cover and concealment there for me. So open areas are areas you want to avoid too. So you want to go through there and mark out and black out all the open areas. And by the time you do this, you're only going to have a handful of areas which are going to be somewhat dangerous possible routes. And then you're going to have, you know, those 4 cardinal blue routes taking you to Uncle Bob's. And then, you know, the idea is if you're going out to Uncle Bob's and he lives out in the city and is out in the country, that, you know, you can leave things there, store things there. If at all possible, go to Lowe's and spend maybe, you know, $100 on a cheap tin building that you can put in his backyard and stock things into it so that if something happens, you show up and are like, hey, I'm here, it was a mess, this is what's going on, and you're good to go. You already have things at your end destination and cache points along the way, or cache points along the way. And along this entire route, you want to look at observation, fields of fire. So when you're traveling your route, you want to look at key terrain features. You want to find a safe or potentially safer route along key terrain features. If you know that you're going to be along the way and you're going to bump into a, you know, a chain link fence, and you either have 2 options. You bypass or circumvent that chain link fence. So you either have to find a way to go around that chain link fence and already know that you already have that as part of your plan, or you have to, you know, decide to either go over the chain link fence and have a means of climbing over and all that, or bring you some bolt cutters along and cut you a hole through it and pop on through. You know, pre-planning. You want to look at obstacles, natural and man-made. If at all possible, you want to have some obstacle that prevents someone from being able to get to you, but at the same time, you know, using those obstacles, you want to be able to both use them for yourself, but have a way to circumvent them as well. If you know you're going to have to cross a river, you know, you can try and cross at the bridge, but if that's a high traffic area, and then it's a high traffic area between 2 high crime areas, you don't really want to go to that bridge. It might be safer to, you know, buy you an inflatable raft and go bury it out in the woods somewhere, so that you just go to your little cache point with your inflatable raft, dig it up, inflate it, paddle across the river, deflate it, and, you know, either carry it with you or just leave it lay. And Ramen Ninjutsu, they do have those little folding boats and the little water spiders that you kind of set on with your legs hanging in the water and kind of just paddle your way across. You know, you want to have some sort of pre-planning to deal with that obstacle. So that, you know, if you know that you have to cross that waterway, it's easier for you to cross that waterway and the other people can't. If there's, you know, civil unrest, people following you, things like that. And like I said, you want to have these different routes that you're going to take going to your end destination. So you want to have areas that you can potentially double back through on your map and areas that you need to avoid completely. And, you know, the reality of the matter is it doesn't matter how well you plan, how well you survey the area, shit's going to happen. That's life. So your planning needs to be tentative, and you need to be willing to adjust your plan. You might have to walk through, you know, the worst neighborhood in your area to get to safety because of what's going on around you. And you might not want to, but you might actually have to, take the risk of dealing with the fact that you might have to, go in guns blazing or go out guns blazing, to get through there. And even though, it's one of those situations where you have to analyze your options. You have to examine your odds and examine your options. So you want to pay attention to this the whole time you're surveying your area, and have some idea of what you're dealing with. And again, like I said, the watering holes and natural sources of water is kind of sketchy. It might be something you want to avoid, or potentially avoid as much as possible. If you're going to travel, my suggestion is travel early morning. Be up at 5. As soon as the sun cracks, be ready to roll out as soon as the sun gets up and you get a little bit of light, so you can see what's going on ahead of you to avoid things before, avoid threats before they actually become a danger to you. And have these areas that you don't want to go into, that you'll go into if you have to, which is the safest route through the areas which you don't want to go through. But you basically want to outline it, and the best thing that I can recommend is putting up this map and having this visual aid.